Please welcome the CEO of Bumble, Whitney Wolfe Heard, media maven, supermodel, and founder of Modelland, Tyra Banks, the founder and partner of Cowboy Ventures, Aileen Lee, and the co-anchor of CBS This Morning, Gayle King.
I don't know if you guys have been outside yet, but it's 76 degrees. The sun is shining. I'm wearing my favorite color, yellow. I think it's going to be a really good day. And we were watching the panel. You know, they've never done this before, and I think this is such a great idea. When you look at the people on the list, to have all of the energy in this room, it's going to be fun. But we are here now because who runs the world? Girls.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the panel. Everyone here is either a current winner, is currently on the list, or is a past person who was on the list. And I know everybody in the room can read. So I will just say this to you. Their resumes are extensive and impressive. So you guys can Google and do their bios. But I did want you to know this, what Time magazine said about them. Aileen Lee. We need a champion of change, someone who not only promoted progress, but also epitomized it. So she charted her own path by starting Cowboy Ventures, stepped up to the challenge. She also has a nonprofit, All Raise, and this is what they say about you, Aileen Lee. All Raise is brilliant and revolutionary, and so is Aileen Lee in the Pioneer category. Whitney Wolfe Heard. She was a woman, also in the Pioneer category. Was a woman who refused to be silenced by men, who is driven to succeed by her own merits. She left Tinder and soon became determined to put women in the driver's seat when it comes to the world of online dating. And just as we were coming out here, Whitney was being mic'd by Orlando. And Orlando said, Whitney, I met my wife, my fiance, Kelly, through Bumble.
Yeah.
My girlfriend. And Whitney goes, say that again. Because I'm thinking, Whitney, should I try Bumble? So enter Bumble. Maybe if I could meet Orlando, I should have done that. So enter Bumble. The genius of this app is that while both men and women can indicate interest, only women can initiate the conversation. And last but certainly not least, Tyra Banks, also Pioneer. She has insisted that her TV show about models include women of various sizes and ethnicities. She has founded T-Zone to empower young women in dealing with the issues of physicality and self-respect. And we are lucky that she believes what she is telling other girls and young women, that she is far, far more than just a body in a bathing suit. Welcome, ladies. But I remember, Tyra, when you were dragged by someone who was criticizing you in a bathing suit where you looked absolutely amazing and you said, they can kiss my fat you-know-what.
I sure did.
I remember that.
I told them to kiss my fat ass, and that's actually why I was on this list, because of that moment.
Yeah, when I looked at that and said, God, that's so good. So I want to start with you, Aileen, because Cowboy Ventures, I want to know what you saw that was missing that you said, I can do this, and what does Cowboy Ventures mean and do?
Oh. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm just honored and a little freaked out to be here.
Me too. I felt that too. Honored and freaked out is a good way to describe it.
So I have been doing what's called venture capital or venture investing for almost 20 years, and I worked at a storied firm, a large traditional firm called Kleiner Perkins for about 12 years. And to be honest, there are very few role models in my industry that were women or successful women, and some friends who are entrepreneurs, living in Silicon Valley, you're fortunate that, you go to school or your kids go to school with entrepreneurs, and so you're always talking to people who have the boldness and the risk profile to start things. And they were like, hey, when are you going to start your own firm? And it had never crossed my mind. And then so I was like, maybe it's my time.
Yeah.
And so we started a small firm called Cowboy Ventures, and we invest in tech startups, but it's turned out, that I think hopefully it is inspiring to people that women can do it. And we're trying to pioneer an industry that is massively male-dominated. It has been since its inception.
Tech startups for women or?
No.
For all. You take boys too?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes. We don't lower our standards, but they have a seat at the table.
And I'm thinking Cowboy Ventures means what to you? You definitely have a cowboy look.
Oh, really? Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Well, actually, you know what? We have 3 kids, and when our twin daughters were 4, we told them, hey, we're going to have a little brother. Would you like to help come up with the name? And they decided that his name should be Cowboy Handsome Shiny Dolphin.
As one does.
So we kept
yes.
Cowboy. So our son's name is Cowboy, and so when I was starting the fund, you know, you don't really have a business unless you raise the fund, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time coming up with like the perfect fancy name and then not raise the fund. So I called it the Cowboy Fund when I was raising it. And then afterwards, I went through a process of trying to come up with a great name, and I was looking for something that had like the spirit of the West, entrepreneurship, ethics, values, doing more with less, being willing to be on the frontier by yourself and figure stuff out. And people were like, Cowboy's pretty good.
Yeah, Cowboy's actually pretty good. Whitney, I know your story very well, and I think many people have heard the story, but I want you to share with the audience some of the trials and tribulations you had when you were starting, especially from men who didn't seem to take you seriously.
So I think what's interesting about where Bumble is today was it was a very personal reaction to what I experienced. So when I left my the last place I was attacked online.
Which was Tinder.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, you said that hate was coming from you at
Yes.
all sides at the time.
So basically, I was being inundated by hateful behavior online on social media. And, you know, I cried and I became depressed and I thought that was the end and kind of wanted to dig myself into a hole and, you know, wore Uggs for way too long with sweatpants tucked into them and thought that was the end.
It's
and
an
then
attractive look.
It's a great look. It
Yeah.
works. And it just not in July, and that was the issue. So I started realizing, wow, if this is happening to me, this has got to be an issue for women all over the world, especially young women. So I said, you know, why
How
is social...
old were you at the time?
24 years old.
Okay.
Wow.
And I said, you know, why is social media so tough? Why is it so devastating? And why are we allowed to engineer this hateful behavior? And it's addictive, right? Social media is so addictive. So I started thinking, why isn't there a social network that's rooted in kindness and complementary behavior?
Yes.
If you can engineer and make bad behavior addictive, surely you can make kindness addictive. And so that was really the beginnings of thinking about Bumble. And then I was actually, you know, it's not that all men have been negative or bad, and I think there's actually an incredible support system of the great ones out there. And I was fortunate to stumble upon one of those. And he, you know, he believed in me, and when no other man out there would even so much as look at me.
But what would some of the men say to you along the way?
Oh, you know,
When you were
I
making
had a
your
scarlet
pitch.
letter on me.
Yeah.
No one wanted to even take a meeting with me or talk to me. And so when my business
Were you
partner
considered a
Andre-
troublemaker?
Oh yes,
Difficult.
troublemaker, out to get men, you know, demonic, all the names in the book. It was really an interesting time. And so anyway, he said, okay, great, you're going to start a new dating app. It's like, I think you're crazy. I don't want to touch the dating world. That's a scary world for me. And he said, but this idea of a kinder social network, why not build this into dating? And so that was really the beginnings of Bumble. So for those of you who are not familiar, women always make the first move on Bumble. And I had a lot of men say, why would you start a social network where nothing's going to happen? No one's going to do anything.
Yes.
And actually, I think next week we're going to cross the 1 billion first move mark. So
Yes. Bravo.
That was awesome.
We'll talk about it later because Bumble is so much more than a dating app. We'll talk about more of that in just a second. But Tyra, you said a lot of success comes through pain, fighting through pain when you feel there's no hope. When I was backstage, I said, wow, Tyra, I remember because you were the first black woman to be on the cover of GQ. And she said, oh no, what did you say?
As
oh
the first female model to be
Yes.
on the cover of GQ.
Exactly. But I was the first black woman to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated,
Yes.
which I think is a really important distinction.
Yes.
And you said people always get that wrong, including me. So a lot of success comes through pain, fighting through pain when you feel there is no hope.
Yes.
What was an example of that for you?
I have many examples of that. One is I'll never forget being a fashion model and my agency in Italy showing my mother, who at the time was kind of like my caregiver,
Yes.
traveling with me, a list of eight designers that did not want to hire me anymore because my body was maturing and getting thicker. And my mother showed me this list and I started to cry. And she said, I was like, Mom, I'm gonna starve. I guess I'll eat salads all the time. I'll run around the block constantly in Milan. And she says, no, you know what we're gonna do? And I'm like, she's like, we're gonna go eat pizza.
I like
And
that.
so she took me to this pizzeria. Yeah, she took me to this pizzeria on Corso Magenta, I'll never forget. And there was a white paper, you know, like those butcher papers in restaurants. And she put a pen in my hand. and she says, write down every client in this modeling industry that likes ass. She said, because I'll be damned if my baby starves for these bitches in black. Meaning, back in the day, everybody in fashion wore black. Now they're quite colorful, but back in the day, it was black. And so through tears, I'm like, Victoria's Secret? She's like, write it down. And I'm like, Sports Illustrated. Write it down. And then she goes, now draw a line down the middle of that page. And I drew a crooked line crying. And she's like, now write it down to everybody that has an ass. And I was like, Cindy Crawford. Write it down. And so then we had this list that was also full of pizza stains and tears. And she says, this left side are the clients that you're going to make your agency call. And the right side are the careers that you're going to emulate, but make it your own.
All right, Tyra.
Yeah,
Tyra
so
says being
amazing.
different is better than being better. You described Tyra as a world-famous supermodel, author, turned businesswoman, turned producer. Which of those titles means the most to you, the most proudest of? And teaching at Stanford, thank you very much.
Yeah, actually, I love being a teacher. I just finished my 3rd year of teaching at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. I teach personal branding the 2nd year business students. And
Wait, help me with branding. Only
Yes.
because I see so many millennials, and I love millennials, I have 2 of them. But I see so many of these young people saying, I'm working on my brand, I'm working on my brand, my personal brand, I have to do it. And it drives me friggin' crazy.
And it drives me crazy too.
I think your brand should be, keep your head down, do your work, do a good job.
Yes.
And so many, and then you'll be
Yes.
noticed. But people say, no, working on my brand. Help me understand.
Well, I can address-
Am I outdated?
No. Yes and no. And let me explain why. Let me explain why.
Please.
Not outdated, because today people are so concerned with popularity over achievement.
Yes.
And so it's like popular,
I don't like
famous
that,
for
Tyra.
famous sake.
Yeah.
So most definitely. However, on the part that might be a little bit not current is that everyone does have some type of personal brand, particularly because of social media. So you're putting something out constantly. And the lack of having that control makes other people tell your story. And what I teach my students is they're going out into the business world, and I'm giving them these tools to assess their brand, to differentiate their brand so that they can have a competitive advantage against so many people that are in that same room doing the same thing that they are doing. How can they be different and stand out and raise money? How can they be different and attract the best people working for their business or stronger partners? And I have crazy success. I remember my first year of students, 3 out of 25 students were on, I can't remember the list, it was either Fortune or Forbes 30 under 30, using the principles that we taught them in my class, and they got on those lists. So it does make a difference.
Yeah. Whitney, you know
but their
about 30 under
achievement
30, yeah.
pushing the popularity as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, maybe I need to change my mindset about that.
You're on the cover of Time.
Hello, personal brand.
And I'm not under 30.
You got a good brand.
Thank you.
And get this, Gayle.
Thank you.
And you're on wearing your favorite color, which is
yeah.
yellow, which is your signature color, which I teach my students about.
What?
And about finding a signature.
Also Bumble's color.
Oh,
Look
that's
at
true.
this.
You
Right.
should have a signature color?
Mine is yellow.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yes.
I didn't know. Well, listen, I've always loved yellow. I just think it's sunny, it's bright, and I sort of look at life that way.
Me too.
You do.
But I really do. I'm so happy, honest to God, to be on the planet. But I think, guys, this is a good time to be a woman. We have all sorts of, girls rule the world and all that good stuff. But I find that I don't want men to worry about that. I don't want men to say there's not a place for me, because I still very much like boys. What do you say about that, Aileen? I think a lot of people are thinking, okay, women, women, women. What message are we sending to men?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, in the technology industry, you've probably read or heard about it's been really hard for women and minorities,
Yes.
people who come from different backgrounds. It's been very challenging, and the numbers show it. There's both personal stories and so there's a movement, and rightfully so, to try and change that, to change cultures, to move the numbers. And I think that can be threatening for people.
Should it be?
It shouldn't be. I mean, it's not zero sum, first of all, right? I
Yes.
think that this zero sum mentality, and we talked about this a little bit beforehand about women not thinking that it's zero sum, and kind of reframing the picture in that way. I think technology is such a huge component of culture and society and economic power, and if we only have one type of person building those products, they're not going to work for a vast segment of society. We're leaving a lot of people out of the picture in terms of jobs and being able to use products. I think there's a lot of reasons why, and lots of research shows that having different perspectives around any table leads to better results.
I agree with that.
But there's also issues sometimes with women versus other women too, Whitney.
Yes, this is a big issue in my opinion right now. So women right now are really striving for equality, right? And we want to be respected and we want to have, be seen as equals. Yet every day I turn a corner and I hear women speaking poorly about other women, or they find something successful. Did you hear about that valuation or this or that? What do you think she did to do that? Or, but did you hear this about her? And it's a lot of really demeaning behavior. And so I think we as women, we will never achieve equality and respect from others, from other genders, and from men if we ourselves don't respect each other. And so I think that's a really big, important piece of it. Also, it's not about kicking men off the table. It's about building a bigger table and having everyone be inclusive. It's been polarizing and extreme for me to hear a lot of men in different industries say, I won't ride in an elevator with a woman right now, or I won't be alone with a woman. And I always say to them, are you a predator?
Yeah.
And they say no.
Right.
And I say, you got nothing to worry about then.
Right.
It's not it doesn't have to be so scary. But I really do believe that it's about unity. It should not be divisive.
And it shouldn't be two parallel networks,
it's
like a
not
girls network and
women
a boys
versus
network.
men and men versus women. We should all be striving to work together. And any good business is just a business that's trying to solve a problem in the world, right? Whatever that might be. And we should try to solve that together.
You've heard men say, I don't want to ride in an elevator with a woman?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I worry, as much as I applaud the Me Too movement, and I think it's very important for the voices to be heard and to be believed, I worry sometimes about all transgressions being painted with the same brush. And I think we have to be very, very careful about that. Do you think the Me Too movement is helpful at this particular time, or is it hurting, or is it hurtful in some respects?
In my opinion, women have for centuries been silenced and scared to speak out. And I in 2014 went through a moment where I had so many people attacking me for all of these different things. And so there is something so empowering and so liberating about women actually having a platform to share their stories. Bad things do happen, and they happen regularly, and it is at epidemic proportions. I mean, truly, the bad behavior is everywhere. And so women need a platform. They need to be heard. They need to be given the support that they deserve. Do I think it needs to, build this wall between women and men? No. And there has to be some middle ground. Like you said, it cannot be all the same paintbrush.
Yeah,
There's
I don't want women
versions.
to suffer because stories like you said, men are afraid to be in an elevator. I always say this to men. If you don't want your wife, your daughter, your mother to know what you're doing, then that should be a clue that maybe I shouldn't be doing that stuff. I personally don't think that it's so confusing. Is it better to have a mostly women management team?
You want to go?
I'll speak for Bumble, because Bumble has a huge management team. Are you 85%?
We, at Bumble, as a company, we're 85% women, and that doesn't mean we don't have incredible male voices, right? We have all genders that are included in our company, but I will say that if you think about the major social networks, and when I say major, I know there's social networks with a lot of more users. We have around 55, almost 60 million users now. But if you think about those platforms with scale like that, all with the exception of maybe Bumble are predominantly male leadership, founders, management teams. And so having women voices, they're very important. And not just on the marketing side or the partnership side. Having women's voices.
Or human resources.
Right. Having women's voices in every corner of a company, it's incredibly important. And I will say, even with our engineering department and our software department, there is a disparity still. It is predominantly male, and we're working on that. And we're doing our best to get involved, whether that be training the next wave, the next generation. So we have to start earlier than companies. My firm belief is we have to start in the classroom.
In the classroom?
We have to start in the classroom because classroom
Elementary,
comes before
junior high, middle school, what?
Elementary. I mean, this should start from day one, the
And
way
what's
we
the
educate
message
our
in
youth.
elementary school?
currently or
No, what do you think the message should be in
that
elementary
everyone
school?
can do anything? You know, women shouldn't be siloed into girly corners, and boys shouldn't be put into, you know, building trucks. If, you know, anyone can do anything, and it shouldn't be gender-based.
Tyra?
My mission, so I have a startup called Model Land, which is, I guess, the modeling world meets Disney. I'm launching at the end of this year, and Disneyland, I guess. And not only is it important for me to hire women, my team understands that it's important for us to hire women of color. So I have that extra layer that is very specific for my team right now. I feel like I also look at diversity in other ways too. We have gay men, you know, so I'm always looking for that mix. Gay men, straight men, women, and then women of color. Very passionate about that, particularly even on my production company side, Bankable Productions. It's very important for me to find female writers of color. And I notice certain challenges with different pitches that we're creating now, and I see when I don't have that diversity, the lens of something can also become quite controversial if it were to get out into the world because of the lens that it's coming from.
Well, I look at some of the missteps in, so like Gucci had a problem with Gucci. I don't want to, is it Prada? A couple of fashion houses have had problems with what you look at are very offensive stereotypes. And I look at that, guys, and I say, who was in that room when that decision was made? Because you know those campaigns have to go through so many different looks, so many different approvals. That's why it is so important to have diversity at the table. Aileen?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, if you think about facial recognition, artificial intelligence, taking photos, right? If you don't have, you know, if you're developing cool software to take photos of people and you don't have people with different colored skin, you don't realize that your product could have a huge problem.
No, Aileen said this, guys. It is harder for a woman to raise money than a man, and that kind of sucks. But we will fix it over time. Why is it harder?
I should have said it kind of super sucks.
Kind of super sucks.
I mean, it's, if you look at the numbers, so the venture capital industry manages over $400 billion a year, and the vast majority of dollars go to teams that have all male founders. I think the money, teams that had only at least one female founder only got like close to 10% of venture capital dollars. So basically 90% of dollars go to all male teams. And it's not just social networks, it's shopping apps, it's media companies. I mean, they're generally been founded by all men.
Health, all
But don't you think, guys, people hire people that look like them? They hire their friends. They hire people that they're comfortable with.
That is the culture we're trying to change. And I think if we can, you know, people can shop with their wallets. Right? If you look, and a lot of research shows that millennials and Gen Z care about this much more than actually older generations, where they care about the values of a brand. Who are the owners of a company? What do they stand for? Where do they come from? And if you look, if there are new social networks that are co-founded by lots of different kinds of people, and customers in the future have a choice, if they vote with their time and their attention and their wallets, we can change the success of companies.
And in terms of capital raise, I literally tomorrow am starting my roadshow for Model Land. And I know and have been told I have to be better. I've been told that my entire life as a model. You have to be better. I have to sell more magazine covers to get on the cover that somebody sells hundreds of thousands less than I do. And so my pitch and the financial deck is so beyond polished. It is spit shined because I have to be better, and it's just a fact.
It's because basically 90% of the investors that have the money are men. And so that's another thing that we're trying to change at All Raise, is basically trying to create more balance in the ecosystem so that you don't walk into a room, or you don't walk into a room and people are like, oh gosh, I wish my assistant was here so that she could tell me what she thinks about this pitch.
Did somebody say that to you?
Oh yeah.
Tell that story. What happened?
I was meeting with a series of different private equity firms, and one of them was, and by the way, I've met with some really amazing PE firms and lots of incredible men at some of these places, but I had this one guy look at me and he was kind of perplexed. He said, so, wait, women are talking first? I wish my assistant was here. I just would love to get her opinion on this. What do you need your assistant's opinion on this? I mean, it's just, it's perplexing sometimes. And by the way, it's not happen all the time, you know? But I do think that a lot of people forget that the planet is comprised of half women, and we are actually major consumers, and we
But
make
you know
a lot
what, guys?
of decisions.
All companies say they want to do better, they want diversity, they want more gender equality, but yet it doesn't seem to change. So what do we do to help it to change? And it is changing, but what do we do to speed up the process?
Well, I think what
Aileen?
you're doing is so important,
Well,
you know,
what
putting
we're
money
doing
there.
is, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things we can do. There's kind of micro and macro things, right? If you're here or you're listening, you're a person of influence.
Yes.
And so you can start at your company. You can look at who's on your teams, whether you're creating a culture in meetings or informally where people who are different are being included.
Yeah.
You can look at your board and look at the balance, the backgrounds, the types of people who are on your board. If you're going to raise money next, and if you're going to have choices, you can think about who you meet with and who you invite to invest in your company, because you're going to make a lot of money for the people who invest in your company.
Exactly.
The economic power of entrepreneurship is incredible when companies are successful. So think about who you're going to be working for and who you're going to be making money for.
Yeah. Also, people that gain power and gain control, reinvesting that into the next wave. So,
And you're doing that, yeah.
we're going
with Bumble
tomorrow,
Fund.
actually. Bumble Fund, we have committed a fund to only investing in minority women founders. And so what we're doing is essentially accepting pitches from women all over the world, and people like Serena Williams and you know, people like you, and all these different people are getting involved, and we are essentially investing both capital and intellectual capital and connections and resources and access to all of these women that otherwise are telling us they're being ignored, they're getting the door shut in their face. And so we're not a VC, we're a company that has found profitability, and now we're dedicating some of that profitability to the next wave.
And it also starts at the top. I was at a dinner last night. Mark Benioff had a dinner, and we were sitting around the table talking. And I want to give a shout out to Time Magazine, the editor-in-chief, Edward. I won't name the woman in case she doesn't want me to share it publicly, but I thought it was such a sweet story that she said she'll be sitting in a meeting, and Edward will say, "What do you think about that? What's your opinion about that?" Something as simple as that,
Yes, it's huge.
coming from someone at the top,
Yes.
makes such a difference. And it's stuff that you don't even think about it at the time, but she was saying it meant the world to her, or she was sitting on the side, come and sit at the table. That small gesture, and it really isn't so small, speaks volumes.
It can
And it's
change someone's career.
It can change,
Yeah.
you're so right about that. We have less than a minute, so we'll have one great question. Who has it? They told me we should ask questions, but we'll do one or two.
It's hard to see out there.
Who has the microphone? I know in this room of influence,
There's an arm right up
somebody has a
there.
question. Where?
Right there.
Okay.
So, especially being a white male, I think
Hello, white man. There's a lot of you. Yeah. What?
being a white male, I want to talk a little bit about male allyship, especially seeing, from poor, incredibly influential women. What do you think would be the best way for the average white guy to get involved and really talk about male allyship, and not only uplift women, but also uplift women of color and be inclusive of all this diversity?
What is your name, white man? That's a good question. What is your name? Joey. From where, Joey?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay, Joey from Boston.
I love that.
Yeah, I
by
do
the
too.
way, I
Everybody
thought
hit
was
that
great.
question, and then we have to stay on time.
Okay, my quick 2 seconds. I think that if you are in a room where maybe there's a lot of white males and there might be one woman, or there might be somebody who feels or is part of kind of the minority of the room, right? Because it's not just being part of a minority group, there's always a minority in a room.
Yes.
Asking their opinion, like Gayle just said, or saying, hang on, let's let that person speak, or giving that person a podium, and really showing that everybody in the room counts, and it doesn't have to be at this mass scale. It could really start with a meeting, right? It's like a basic meeting, and I think that's a great way to just do your part on every single day. And no one wants to alienate nice men. No one wants to alienate men at all. I think we just all want to be heard.
Yes, Tyra?
I think it's about mandates. I think if you have power, that is a platform that wields just so much control. And having the mandate, this is this role, this is a CFO. We will find a woman. We will find a woman of color. We will, and like being very specific, and of course legally specific, whatever
Yes.
that is. But I think it's really about being that pointed with it.
And it doesn't mean lowering your standards, too.
At
I'm
all.
never in favor of hiring
At
a woman
all.
or a person of color if they are not qualified for the job.
Yeah, I totally
Aileen?
agree with what you both said. And I think, there's a lawyer, author, Brian Stevenson, who
Yes.
talks a lot about proximity and like being proximal to
to
situations
power,
to
yes.
be able to relate them, and making things more personal can help you, give you the confidence to understand how to be part of the solution. And I think for a long time, like Whitney said, women have been socialized into just like, put your head down, don't talk about what's hard about being a woman, don't talk about the harassment, don't talk. And so we've kind of made it pretty comfortable for men to live separately and not really be proximate to what it's like to be different or other when you're in a minority situation. So I think for women and for men, let's talk about it. In a small, safe situation, ask women or friends of color or people you don't even know that you might work with, say, can we grab lunch and just talk about your experience and help me understand better how I can be a better ally, how I can support you better. Because once you have those personal stories and you can relate, you will feel more confident to be able to say in a meeting,
That question
if
there.
someone says something uncomfortable, like, hey, you know what, that doesn't feel appropriate. Those little things make a huge difference.
All right. Thank you, Joey from Boston. Thank you, audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going this way.